Now let's take a very quick look at history, because hopefully a brief examination of many of the lies and falsehoods that have been promoted as the truth through our institutional academic system can help you understand how lies of the monetary system have been promoted for centuries without people ever realizing that much of the education about the financial and monetary system has been completely littered with falsehoods and lies. Most people say, well, that's a conspiracy. It's not really a conspiracy, because it's just certain concepts being taught to students and generations repeatedly over time, that, and so much so that these repeated lies now are accepted in the mainstream as truth. So that's how, many lies about the monetary system can be disseminated all over the world, and people don't really understand the truths about the monetary system. The academic system is controlled by the powers that be, and thus they teach the concepts that they want you to learn. Paul Krugman, a professor of economics and international affairs at the Woodrow Wilson School at Princeton, is a perfect example of this. And in fact, people revere him because he was awarded, and the key word here is awarded. He was awarded by the people in power a Nobel Prize in economics. Therefore, his theories are even more well received by the mainstream media and more adhered to by citizens all over the world as gospel, when it certainly isn't. So everything Paul Krugman says, I disagree with. And I think, in fact, most of what he says is extremely harmful to the economic freedom of people all over the world, and the economic freedom of especially Americans. I think a lot of what he promotes is anti-American and anti-freedom. So it's interesting because, again, you have to be keen to the knowledge that there are people that have been put in positions of authority to make us believe what they want us to believe, and not, not to promote independent thought and critical thought. So that's a very important thing to understand. For instance, if we turn back to history again, you can look at Operation Northwood. Now, that was an operation in 1962 where the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the U.S. Army basically endorsed hijacking and bombings inflicted upon American civilians on domestic soil in the United States to rally support among American citizens for full-blown invasion of Cuba and Fidel Castro. That took place in 1962. And luckily, though, we had a president at that time that was honest and full of integrity, John F. Kennedy, that shot that ludicrous, insane idea down. The details of Operation Northwood did not become public until about 1997. Through Freedom of Information Act, certain documents were released to the public. So that's 35 years. So 35 years, think of all the people that are involved in those discussions. They never talked about it once. That's not a conspiracy. It's basically just information that's being withheld. The CIA even has a term for this secret information. It's called blowback. And blowback is the unintended consequences of foreign operations that is deliberately kept secret, deliberately being the key word, kept secret from the American public. When the retaliation comes as a result of these foreign operations overseas, the public is not able to place the attack in any type of sensible context. That's when it's so easy for the governments to sell the whole notion that, we were attacked because these people hate us, or because they hate democracy, or it's just easy to call them evil because that's what blowback is. You don't understand because all these foreign operations that caused retaliation were kept secret. Now, if you haven't seen, I'm going to show you two movies. One is called The Fog of War, and the other one is called Why We Fight. In the movies I just showed you, in The Fog of War, the key person at the interview is a person named Robert McNamara. Now, Robert McNamara was a key planner during World War II. He served under Major General Curtis LeMay in helping to plan bombing sorties against the enemy. He also served as the U.S. Secretary of Defense from 1961 to 1968. Now, it's interesting because if you're an American watching this video, or even if you're not, I believe that a lot of the information about World War II is really relatively unknown. So if you look at World War II, after Pearl Harbor happened in 1941, which killed 2,402 Americans, 4 years later, in March of 1945, the American forces basically firebombed Tokyo, and in one night, 100,000 Japanese died. So that's basically about 42 Pearl Harbors. So most people don't know that because most of these facts are completely cleansed and deleted from history books. And as well, if you look at it now, these facts came from, you have to remember that they came from Robert McNamara, who eventually came to serve as the Secretary of Defense and was a key integral planning member of strategy during World War II. Now, Robert McNamara also mentioned that 50% to 90% of 67 Japanese cities were destroyed. He said that 58% of Yokohama was destroyed, 51% of Tokyo, 40% of Nagoya, 35% of Osaka, 55% of Kobe. So these are all facts that I never learned when I was going through school in America. And the relevance of me telling you this story is that if so much of the factual account of history can be excluded, then certainly you have to give credence to the possibility that much of the facts about our current global monetary system has also been excluded from education. And you have to realize that there's so much information out there because we are always taught just to obey authority blindly, to accept what teachers tell us blindly. Dissent is not welcomed in education. Like, I've seen that through my own education, even though I went to Ivy League school. And even though that was a long time ago, but people understand it's the same situation today. If you dissent with a professor, most likely you get C, D, or F. But if you agree with the professor, then you get an A. That's just how the system works. And that's how it's designed to be, to basically crush dissent. I can only think in my educational career of a couple professors that I really respected because they did encourage critical thinking. But you're talking about a couple professors through 12 years of education from kindergarten to high school, and then 4 more years of college education, and 3 years of grad school that I also obtained in obtaining a double master degree. So just 2 professors out of all those years. So that's kind of crazy. That's all I want to say just about education, just to kind of open your mind up to think a little bit more for yourself and try to awaken.